Hi, I'm Margie Holmes, psychologist, author, and educator. This week's episode is all about the painful process of being dumped or being the one who does the dumping. I asked you to share what signs there were or are that the relationship was about to end. Madonna Fajardo, Rowena Villoria, Dave Leproso Jr. all said, problems in communication. Specifically, we have Aida Santos who says, a sure sign that the relationship is about to end is when someone becomes much more interesting than you, or she or he is not interested in what you do, stays out too much, is irritable when you're together, and when you explain why you think you're drifting apart, all she or he says is, it's all in your mind. Now, this can be terrible because not only does it question your observations, what is that? It even makes you feel like you're crazy. I mean, there was a movie about this a long time ago where Elizabeth Taylor's partner wanted Elizabeth Taylor to feel crazy, and this really happens. I mean, just think of it. Is someone as beautiful with violet eyes, which not many people have, can have a partner that makes her crazy or makes her want to think she's crazy? Now, what chance have we got? Okay? Danilo Galang, pag may nabitiwan ng mga salita, masasakit na mga salita, na't mahirap nang bawiin. And that is true. Kahit na mag-sorry ka, mahirap bawiin because umiikot ng ikot ito sa isip ng iyong partner. And there are sometimes when you're really angry that you say things that hurt. But even though the person doesn't forget it, he can forgive you. But there are some things that are said. And I think the critical factor is, if your partner means to hurt you, your partner knows what you are most sensitive about, but when you're fighting, he becomes unfair or she becomes unfair and takes this out and uses it to slam bang you, then it's a little hard to forgive that because it's not only words said in anger, but it is a mean-spirited accusation that he knows or she knows will hurt you to the quick. Okay, another sign that a relationship is about to end is what Ro Clemente said. Excuses, excuses, and excuses not to connect or be with you. Carol Esguerra Colburn, indifferent comes very much later. Disillusionment starts long before the indifference. It builds up in trickles. Maureen Jean Lara, when one of them is no longer honest, whether this dishonesty is caught or not, then the relationship should end. A relationship is built on trust, and when trust is no longer present, what then could the relationship be based on? Vicente Rafael shares a sign that no one can miss. What Vin says is, catching them in bed with someone else and having him or he say, wait, let me explain. Mahirap yan, ha? So, what do we do when communication breaks down, accusations are made, and harsh words are never apologized for? The unanimous verdict was, end the relationship. It's painful, but if the relationship needs to be ended, well, in the words of a famous sports shoemaker, just do it, and then move on. For example, Desiree Season relates a story of a breakup gone wrong. She says, I dumped somebody after a 2-year relationship and he came barging into my office one day, making gulo and even wanted to hit me. Fortunately, security came and dragged him out of the building. That experience taught me one thing, never to divulge where you work to whoever you are with at the moment. Or, and I can say this because Desiree knows and loves me, well, at least the former, next time perhaps you can choose someone who is not as prone to such violence. Now, Anonymous shares, the guy knew that I was going out with someone, but he was so persistent to the point of saying, kahit dalawa kami sa buhay mo, I don't mind if I'm not your priority. Na, hindi ko alam kung maawa ako sa kanya or to get worried because he might do something bad. Anonymous continues, I felt terrible for a while. Now, if I may put my clinical psychologist hat for a while, Anonymous, I want to say that totoo yun, kawawa siya for now. But usually, if he becomes your soul partner, kasi hindi ba matira ang matibay? And usually, a guy who is that, in quotes, desperate for you, will be the one to stay. And usually, a guy like that, hindi naman all the time, no? But usually, A guy like that, when he knows that now kayo at kayo rin, at kayo lang, and you have no other options, usually that sort of guy wants to exact revenge. Okay, Alfie Melia shares the lessons he learned from being both the dumper and also the dumpee. Alfie says, on being dumped, of course, it was a very painful, a bit embarrassing, and annoying. Initially, I was angry at the situation, and even with the person, I thought, why dump me when I was the best man for her and I did all my best for her? However, Alfie continues, after a while, after I had really analyzed the entire relationship, I realized that the breakup was normal because I started to see the faults of both, mine and hers. The little misunderstandings that were being cast aside in the beginning, but that simply grew into resentment in the long run. It's hurtful, a blow to one's self-confidence, but the best way to look at breakups is that, regardless of whose fault was the cause, you and the other person are simply not good to be in that kind of relationship. Now let's move on to your questions. Why does being dumped hurt so badly? Happily, Alfie Melia provides a credible answer. Alfie says, because many people feel devastated because they feel that they have to start over again. Yeah, mahirap yun, ano? Finding another person, investing time, energy, and even money again. Napakasakit at mahirap talaga. Now, if I can share how the psychoanalysts look at it, what they see is usually because you don't dump or get dumped when you're at least an adolescent, if more. Now, usually adolescence is the time to move out from your home. And one of the reasons for this, again, psychoanalytically, is when you become very, very attractive. So that the feelings you had, when you were in love with your mother or when you were in love with your father, are especially if they're unresolved, start to come back again, and it's usually less scary to move out and fall in love with someone else. But what happens when you fall in love with someone else is that, and then when you get dumped or you dump someone, is that it becomes very clear to you that the unconditional love that you experience with your mother or maybe you feel with your father is no longer around. And if you're dumped or you dump someone, it means that that unconditional love isn't within your grasp, and probably it will never be in your grasp. And that can be terribly painful, because what you feel like doing is going back into the womb. But if it helps you, that kind of love will never happen again. And in fact, dumping and being dumped is a way to enter the real world, and I think it's good to enter that real world because then you realize that we should treat each other with respect. And if you fall in love with someone and you're really lucky, to treat them not only with respect, but with genuine love and affection. And just to make you feel less sad, please remember that the unconditional love that a mother gives is only when you are a little helpless baby. It doesn't last forever. Just ask a teenager who smashes his car and feels there would be no repercussions because the mother has unconditional love for her or for him. No way. This hardly ever happens. Anonymous asks, is there a less hurtful way of dumping someone? You can try, but being dumped is a painful process that no matter how much you try to sugarcoat it, it doesn't work. For example, some people try to sugarcoat it with words like, I need space, or the silliest and to my mind the most hypocritical of all is, it's not you, it's me. And it hurts and it's hypocritical because how can someone respond to that? A lot of people use this as an excuse not to dump the person, that the person will be so hurt. And so, but what they do is they carry on with another and carry on in secret because they pretend or they delude themselves into thinking that the other person can't take this kind of goodbye. But all this means is that you're a selfish SOB to begin with. And usually you use this as an excuse to 2, 3, or 4 times somebody. So I think we might as well just accept it. There is absolutely no painless way to dump someone. The most you can do is to try and be as decent, truthful, and clear about it when you do. Now, here's a question from Aya. How do you move on from being dumped? And Aya, I guess all I can say is with great difficulty, but you can, even if moving on is slow and even if you have to do it one step at a time. Now, those of you who are familiar with the 12-step program of AA will know that this sounds very familiar. You know, do it one step at a time. And actually, it helps to use a lot of the steps that AA gives. And why not? Because to put it negatively, love can be like an addiction to alcohol or whatever. And the more needy you are, the more of an addiction it is. Which is why AA recommends, and so does Margie Holmes, that don't have a relationship for at least a year if you are either the dumper or the dumpy. Or to put it more optimistically, the more your loved one and you shared different worlds, the more difficult it is to fill those gaps. As Khalil Gibran says, the deeper that sorrow carves into your being, the more joy you can contain. And I know that's difficult to remember while you're in the throes of sadness, but try to, because that will help you see things through. Well, that's it for today. Oops. Before we finally go, there's just one thing I want to tell you. When culling answers for this show, one comment that really stood out was when someone said, I would prefer to be the one dumped rather than the one doing the dumping. I mean, it was really a shock for me, I must admit, because it seems so counterintuitive. So I'd like to ask you, do you disagree or do you agree? Because we want to discuss this issue sometime soon. So let us know on Facebook, tweet using the hashtag AskMargie, or send an email to askmargie@rappler.com. See you next week.